Okay, so participants, first of all, welcome to the AFM September 2020 attempt course at Wi-Fi. I am your instructor, Taha Popatia, and this is our first online session. This is the first online meeting that we are having, and in today's meeting, I shall be introducing myself, the contents of the exam, and then I will discuss how I will teach the AFM course, and then I will ask you certain questions after which we can start the classes in their regular flow. So let me share a presentation. I hope that the presentation screen is visible to all of you. If anyone can in the chat box can confirm it, it will be great if you guys can confirm. Okay, thanks Yasin for the confirmation. Okay, thank you for the confirmation, Huda as well. Okay, guys. So hopefully the presentation is in front of you guys, and if at any time you have any questions, you can obviously write those questions in the chat box, and I will surely assist you. I will surely answer you guys. Okay, so my name is Taha Popatia, and it is our first class for the AFM September 2020 exams. So the first thing is that I will like to introduce myself, and I will tell you something about the papers. Okay, so if I talk about myself, if I introduce myself to you guys, okay, probably there was some issue. Let's restart again the discussion. I myself am ACCA member, and I am a professional accounting affiliate myself as well. I was declared Pakistan's top affiliate, secured numerous nationwide possessions myself, and I have a teaching experience of 8+ years as well at ARTT Business School, and I have recently joined Wi-Fi as well. Okay. I also worked as an engagement auditor at Ernest and Young, and it was between 2012 and 2016. So I will briefly go over the contents of the course and discuss what's it in which makes AFM different from uh, the other financial reporting exam papers. Okay, so now when we talk about AFM, when we talk about AFM, and when we compare the right approach to AFM examinations in comparison to other examinations, and when we talk about how do we clear it, so the first thing that students must know is that they must be able to distinguish the difference between financial reporting and financial management. Now, this is extremely important that each of you knows what's the difference between the two. What's the difference between something which is known as reporting, which we have already studied in SBR, the F7 financial reporting exam, or the financial accounting, and what's the difference in comparison to financial management. Now, when we talk about financial management, it is more of a forward looking task. you have to take appropriate decisions. You have to take the decisions, the correct and the right decisions. Whereas when we talk about reporting, it is just the recording of transactions. So the first and the major difference is that financial management has a future orientation. And by future orientation, I mean that it links the directions of the organization, and you have to take appropriate decisions for your organization for future. It is all about making the best possible decisions. For example, if we talk about, let's say, net present value topic, the net present value topic highlights the fact that the company must invest somewhere which has positive returns for the shareholders. So you see, actually, it is the step just before a decision needs to be taken. You all must be familiar with the financial management topics in covered in your F9 course, and there was a topic known as net present value. We used to evaluate a project, an investment opportunity, and make a proper decision. So financial management is all about taking correct decisions, and it is forward looking, which makes it very different from reporting. Let's take an example. I just told you about net present value. Let's say, for example, if you have to buy a car, in financial management, you will decide whether the car must be purchased using our cash reserves, or whether we should finance the purchase of car using a banking channel, a banking sector. Or maybe if you have to purchase the car and use it to generate income, you will calculate the net present value of that car and that particular project. Whereas when we talk about reporting, it is simply the recording of that transaction. Once the transaction has been processed, you record that transaction. So this is one basic difference between financial management and financial reporting, which I believe now you guys will make sure that you understand. Okay, hopefully the presentation is visible. I need some participation from all of you to make the session more interactive. Keep writing something in the chat box. Probably you understood what I just discussed with you guys. And okay, someone has raised a hand. Zain Ali, if you have, I can see a raise hand by Zain Ali. Zain Ali, if you have any question, you can write that question in the chat box. And if it was for showing your participation, that's great for your side. So let's move forward. Now, let's discuss the AFM syllabus. Your AFM, or the Advanced Financial Management Exam syllabus, is distributed into different segments. And the first segment, obviously, you all must be aware, or most of you must be aware from the segments. Though, so the first segment about the financial management exam is, or it deals with the roles of senior financial advisor. Now, as a senior financial advisor, the role of a senior financial advisor is a key role in any organization. And as a senior financial advisor, you have to take certain decisions, which includes investment opportunities, the identification of correct investment opportunities, and investing in projects in order to have a growth for the shareholders. Secondly, there are financing policies. For example, if you have decided to invest somewhere, now you will have to decide how shall I finance that particular project. Shall I use my own funds, which is equity or the reserves, or shall I borrow some loan, and so on. So the second thing that the financial advisor has to look is to ensure that the financing policies are appropriately applied. At times, we invest in projects by borrowing funds, and at times, we invest our own equity finance or the reserves or the amounts that we have in reserves. The third decision that a financial advisor has to take is about dividend policies. Now, if a company is in a growth stage and it can foresee good investment opportunities, the amount of dividends will be quite less because the company knows that they have to retain and invest their funds for future projects. However, generally, for a company which cannot foresee any good investment opportunity, or a mature company may pay lesser dividend to its shareholders in comparison. So basically, these are some financial decisions which a financial advisor has to take, and this is covered in the first part of your syllabus portion. Now, the second portion of the syllabus of the AFM exam syllabus deals with the investment appraisal techniques. And probably, I hope so, that you all are familiar with the first two techniques that are mentioned on the screen, which are the net present value technique and the internal rate of return technique. Can you guys recall or write something about these techniques in the chat box? What these techniques were? You must be familiar with these techniques from your previous financial management exam paper. So can you guys contribute something and write something about the net present value technique and the internal rate of return technique? Anything can be written in the chat box, which will be visible to me, and I wish to make it an interactive session and make your participation count. So can you guys just write down something about net present value and internal rate of return? Okay, so these two techniques were introduced in the financial management exam. Okay, Huda, correct, Huda. You rightly said that NPD to accept project if positive and more familiar technique. Okay, correct. You are absolutely right. We do invest in the project when the net present values are positive. Okay, we have one more contribution: current value of all future cash flows. Absolutely correct. These are the present values of all the future cash flows. Very, very rightly said. So these first two techniques were introduced to you in your financial management exam. They are tested again in our AFM course. And then we have modified internal rate of return. Now, this modified internal rate of return is quite similar to internal rate of return technique with some different assumptions. The modified internal rate of return is an advanced, you can say, version of internal rate of return. And there are some assumptions which we will discuss during our classes which distinguish between these two techniques. And this technique is also used to evaluate a project. Then we have adjusted present value technique. Now, adjusted present value techniques is recently quite frequently tested in your AFM exams. So it's an important area. And this adjusted present value technique question may be tested for 25 marks entirely. And hence, it's a very important area. Then we have something which is called free cash flows, which we will discuss. It is similar to cash flows. However, there are certain slight differences. Then we have international investments. Now, when we talk about international investments, it's all about investing in foreign countries. It involves foreign exchange. It involves conversion of one currency into another. And there is many more in this advanced investment appraisal area. So this is the second syllabus area that we have with us. Okay. So now moving on, uh, another syllabus area of AFM exam or the AFM syllabus is the acquisitions and mergers. Now, when we talk about acquisitions and mergers, this acquisitions and mergers topic is given an extra weightage, or it is being tested very, very frequently in the recent few attempts, and students do struggle in this area a lot. There are actually two problem areas for students. One is forex, the foreign exchange currency dealing. the interest rate futures and the foreign currency futures and the options. And then we have this acquisitions and mergers area. So these are basically the two most difficult, you can say, areas, most tested areas of your syllabus in which students face difficulty. Now, when we talk about this acquisition and mergers, it's all about two companies coming together and forming a new company, or one company acquiring another company. Now, for example, if a company acquires another company, if A company acquires B company, and let's say becomes a capital A company, it's called acquisition. However, if a company which is known as A company combines its operation and merges its operations with B company to form a C company, it is called mergers. We will definitely discuss its details in our video lectures as well. Then we have some theoretical aspects being discussed in this area as well, such as we are required to compare it with the organic growth. We are supposed to value the mergers and acquisitions. By valuation, we mean, for example, if a company decides to acquire another company, it wishes to identify what's the correct price that they should pay, or what's the right price to pay in order to acquire certain company. What's the most suitable price. Likewise, the target company, the seller will wish to evaluate this so that it can make sure that it is sold at a right price. And then we have some regulatory matters to discuss. For example, what are the regulations about minority shareholders who are unwilling to sell their shares? Or, for example, what are the regulations about the acquirer acquiring certain number of shares and so on, which we will discuss. And then there are financing of such transactions. Now, what does financing mean? For example, if you wish to acquire another company, you will need a lot of cash. So you can finance that acquisition in a number of ways. For example, you can issue your own company shares, you can borrow funds to finance the acquisition, or you can invest your surplus cash. So we will deal with how certain acquisitions are dealt with. How do we finance we fund the acquisitions, or a company or the acquirer brings up money to acquire another company. So this is one more area of the syllabus which we will be discussing in our lectures as well. Then a very similar area to acquisitions and mergers is the corporate reconstruction and reorganization area. Now, in acquisition and mergers, A company and B company come together, they combine or they merge their operations to form a new company called C company, or A company acquires another company to form a capital A company. But when we talk about corporate reconstruction and reorganizations, it is sort of similar, but you can say it is um, in it's moving in an opposite direction. For example, it includes demergers. Now, what are demergers? Demergers occurs when a single company separates its operations into multiple companies, or for example, when a parent company sells out its subsidiary unit. So there are various types of corporate reconstructions and reorganizations which we will be discussing during the course of our syllabus. For example, a parent selling off its own company. For example, a company demerging its sectors. For example, there is a company having pharmaceutical operations as well as, let's say, machinery manufacturing operations, and it decides to separate these two operations into two separate companies. So there are various types of reorganizations and reconstructions that are faced in real life scenarios, which we will be dealing over here. And yes, reconstructions also occur when a company or a business is facing financial difficulties. For example, there are too many liabilities and the company decides to, let's say, convert its debt into equity so that the debt holders become the members of the company, so that there is no dilution of the company and so on. So it is quite similar to the mergers and acquisitions area, and again a very commonly tested topic. Then the next thing that we have is the um, treasury and advanced risk management techniques. Now, can you guys in the chat box tell me if you are research students or fresh candidates? And if you are research student, can you highlight which of the five areas which we just discussed were the most difficult for you guys? Probably this specific area, which is the treasury and the risk management, including foreign currency risk and the interest rate risk. Am I right? Can you guys comment in the chat box and tell me, if you are a reset, which specific area gave you the most challenging time? Okay, so there is a fresh student. However, if there is some reset student, okay, there is a reset student. Can you identify which area was your weakest area? Whether it was interest rate risk, foreign currency hedging, forex, and the merger and acquisitions. You see, participants, um, Huda has rightly identified the most difficult and the most important areas of the AFM syllabus. Now, do remember, if you wish to clear AFM exam in the very first attempt, number one, you must have a very good grip over mergers and acquisitions area, because it is a quite frequently tested exam question and it is very important. And secondly, the treasury and advanced risk management area. Guys, you can see the first attempt students can see in the chat box, we have one more student identifying that this area is really tough. So the forex and the interest rate hedging area is considered a very complex and a difficult area, and students find it very difficult due to its inherent nature, and probably due to the variety of questions that the examiner has to ask. When we talk about foreign currency risk, now, for example, let's say you purchase certain goods. You are a UK based company and you purchase certain goods from US. And the goods were worth for $100. However, you have to make the payment 3 months after today or 3 months afterwards. So there are chances that the exchange rate between the UK pound and the US currency, there are chances that the exchange rate between the UK pound and the US currency may not move in your favor. So we will deal how to deal with those types of risks, the risk that I may end up paying more later rather than paying now. And when we talk about interest rate risk, for example, if you have borrowed a loan at KIBOR plus 2%, and now you feel that KIBOR may rise in near future, you foresee that the KIBOR rate or the LIBOR rate, the interest rate may rise in the near future, you may end up paying more interest, and hence you will like to hedge this risk. So this is one very important syllabus area. Yasin, I will surely answer your question a bit later. So we have these five areas, five syllabus areas which we have to deal with. Okay, now let's come to the paper format. Let's briefly discuss what's in the exam paper. So the exam paper consists of two sections. When we talk about your exam paper, the exam paper consists of two sections, and it's a 3 hours and 15 minutes exam. Section A contains a compulsory question and it must be attempted, and it's for 50 marks. And in this particular question, in this section A question, you are generally asked probably to write reports, or you are tested with multiple concepts at a time. Probably you will have a question which will test forex, the investment appraisal techniques, the mergers and acquisitions all together. So section A question is worth 50 marks. And then we have section B, and there are two questions in section B. Both the questions are compulsory and must be attempted. Now the section B questions are for 25 marks each. They are tested just like section A from different parts of the syllabus, but we generally do have a question from forex for 25 marks dealing with the foreign currency risk or the interest rate hedging techniques. And then we have a question where mergers and acquisitions as well. So this is your paper format. Now, one reason that students fail is that they are not able to attempt the entire exam paper. I assure you, if you have prepared reasonably and if you attempt the entire exam paper, if you are able to attempt all the parts, there is a very high chance that you will clear this exam paper very easily. So one problem that I have identified recently is that the students are not able to manage the exam pressure and are not able to complete the paper. Even though they know everything, but they are not able to attempt all the parts. They are not able to complete the entire exam paper. And hence, what we will do during our online classes is that I will be assessing you with your mocks. Now, the registered students have already got the September 2020 planner, and they can see that I have scheduled live classes and mocks, and I will be conducting more mocks than what's scheduled in the planner that I have given to the registered students. So first thing for pass is that you do attempt both the sections and all the questions properly. So let's move on. Moving on, how can we simply clear this exam? We have a common objective. As a teacher, I want, as an instructor, I want all of my students to clear the exam. And as a student, you definitely want to clear this AFM exam as soon as possible. So the first and the key thing which you can do is that cover all the syllabus areas. Now there are areas in the syllabus which are very important. For example, I'll highlight it that mergers and acquisitions is extremely important. Corporate reconstruction and reorganization is extremely important. And the treasury management, the risk management area, these three areas are extremely important. So you have to invest good amount of time over there, but you have to cover everything. Now let's say, for example, there is a syllabus area which Afan, I will shortly answer your question. There is a syllabus area which wants students to know the role of World Trade Organization. They wish to know what's the role of World Trade Organization. Now, that area is not tested very frequently. However, when it is tested for 4 to 6 marks probably. Then there is an area dealing with Islamic finance, the Islamic products, ejaras and the sukuks, and sort of Islamic financing products. Again, that is not tested very frequently. It's not a frequently tested topic. You will hardly find it once or probably twice in last 5 to 8 attempts. But again, if it is tested, it's tested for 4 to 5 marks or probably 6 marks. So you see, there are certain areas which are not tested very frequently, for which you must have a overview or a brief knowledge, and then there are areas which are tested every time. So you have to be very good in those areas. Okay, Afan, I will answer your question right after my presentation ends. It will take around 2 to 3 minutes more. The second thing, the second thing is that exam is a mix of theory and computation, and this is again one very important point to highlight. Recently, I had